How's it going, everyone? There is an absolutely tremendous post over on gamesindustry.biz talking to Sandfall and Kepler Interactive regarding Clair Obscur Expedition 33. There's a ton of insight in this interview. I'll leave a link to the entirety of it in the description box below. I do want to assess a lot of different aspects of it as far as what's going on in the future and as far as a lot of the aspects that make Clair Obscur Expedition 33 successful that has really caused other games to not be as successful, or at least things that Expedition 33 implemented that other studios haven't, and the general direction of the games industry. I think games like Expedition 33 recently, and I would even look at games like Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade last year, but Expedition 33, I think, has gotten a lot of people to sit down and just assess the games industry in totality, because there's a lot of different angles that you could look at it from, especially when you look at the success of this game and how well it's done as a brand new IP from a brand new studio, not having the biggest team in the world, and then something that released very recently in like Doom the Dark Ages that is at this point doing fairly underwhelming numbers by what we can see. But again, there's a lot of insight in this interview that I do want to talk about and I think is very interesting. Now, right off the bat, I know that Sandfall Interactive is getting a lot of love for the release of Expedition 33, but also credit to Kepler Interactive. As noted in this post, Kepler is co-owned by a group of studios, but they all operate autonomously. That's coming from portfolio director Matthew Handren, who joined Kepler from PlayStation in 22. They make a lot of their own choices creatively and commercially in terms of the direction of their business, but there is a collaborative aspect that they can draw upon if they feel they need it. The thing that we definitely are very clear on is Kepler is not sitting here telling anyone what to do. The idea is that Kepler can provide support into each studio in terms of things like HR, legal teams, and IT. However, the studios themselves operate on their own and can implement their own ideas. That's how I'm assessing it, which is one of the main reasons why, with the success of Expedition 33, I was like, I don't know, I feel like some other publisher might come into the fray. We already know Microsoft had a hand in getting this game on Game Pass, of course, and I would imagine anyone, a PlayStation, a Microsoft, any major publisher looking at how successful this game is, they would be foolish not to be like, hey, how do we get these people on board and how do we work with them for whatever they do next? Ultimately, I hope that Sandfall is able to do their own thing. I just don't want a PlayStation or somebody like that getting involved in this situation, and I think that idea of making Expedition 33 and having it just done by the studio without a lot of outside involvement in the sense of a publisher, I think that's what made this game special in a lot of regards, because you can feel that passion and that soul. I think what I hear about so much out of games these days is that games are soulless. Expedition 33 absolutely does not have that problem. There's so much life and so much soul and so much passion that just by booting this game into the menu, you can feel that passion come through, and I just hope for the follow-up title, it doesn't go into that direction. Handren also noted, and this is so relevant to today's industry as far as how Kepler is approaching releasing games in terms of chasing trends. If you're making something hot on the heels of that, by the time you get to the market, there will probably be 150 other alternatives. What game does that sound like? Oh, Concord, all of these other live service games that are coming out. That there's a lot of competition on the market and they just feel like they're chasing the trend. I would argue that's why a game like Helldivers 2 is so successful, is that game has a lot of soul and a lot of passion to it. It doesn't feel like Helldivers 2 was just chasing some sort of trend. And maybe, obviously this is a business, you gotta monetize games and whatnot, but I feel like PlayStation, and you look at all the games they've canceled, a lot of them by just reading the tea leaves, Concord, Fair Game coming out, it does feel like they're just chasing that bag and there's so many other options. When you look at Expedition 33, yeah, there's a lot of turn-based games on the market. However, in terms of turn-based games of this style, it's a very unique game, and I think that's a big reason why the game was so successful. As far as the success, the game has had success to the extent that we didn't imagine. We smashed our forecast pretty fast, and then a follow-up title. There will be another video game for sure. I can't wait to dig more into the ideas we already have for the next game, and that is what he noted. I think, again, Expedition 33 will get some sort of DLC, and then you will ultimately do another physical release Game of the Year, Complete Edition, whatever the case may be. Switch 2 port, I think, makes a lot of sense. That 3.3 million number that they've sold already, yes, impressive. I think that number is just going to go up and up because the traction that this game has retained, even after a month on the market, is pretty impressive. Most games of this ilk will come out, yeah, people will be interested in it for 2 weeks, but then naturally people beat it and you move on. That's not an issue with any of those games. That's just the natural course of things. The fact that Expedition 33 still has, what is it, like 40-50% of its peak concurrent Steam player count is really, really impressive. And I think they should absolutely be commended from that. On top of that, it was noted that the team in Sandfall has evolved. Plus, the team has grown up, has acquired new skills throughout the production. Many of them were junior when we started. We learned to work together, so I can't wait to get to the next project because we'll start from a more efficient position than when we started the company 5 years ago, and that comes with higher expectations as well, so it'll be challenging, but I can say that we have, and Gualme in particular has great ideas for the next game. Won't specifically say it's in the Clair Obscur world, but they've already got ideas. They're gonna be cooking. I imagine that it'll be a ways away, but given that the team is gonna be more efficient this time around, given they have worked together, we could potentially see a quicker turnaround than we regularly see in gaming, is what I'm saying. You know, 5 years for a Naughty Dog, or 7 years for a Naughty Dog, 5 years for Yote, might not be 5 years. And also, they spoke a little bit on the AA comeback, and this is another talking point about Expedition 33 in the sense that this isn't a game with a significant scale, in the sense that it had hundreds of people working on it. It had hundreds of millions of dollars attached to it. And they spoke a little bit about AA games. From our perspective, we didn't care much about market considerations. In a sense, a Plague Tale or Mortal Shell or Hellblade, games like those were already proof for us that small teams of less than 50 people could have great games and great execution. They did note that the team was around 30, although that credits include dozens more people than that. They worked on things like QA, localization, voice production, as well as gameplay animation team in Korea. So the 30 number, that's the core team. They had other people involved working on the game, but generally speaking, compared to a lot of other games, that is incredibly, incredibly small. As far as the game being missold, it was noted, I don't think so. I think the creative engine of the game was the group of 30 in terms of what the game is, the vision of it, and the way in which it's executed. That does come from the nucleus of the staff that is Sandfall. They spoke about having a lot of partners, and then they did speak about, you know, the budget of this game. What was the exact budget of this game? It was noted these kinds of games did exist as far as smaller scale games, greater numbers about 15 years ago, and I think there are some threads that the AAA industry lost as they grew and grew and grew and brought in different ways of monetizing. Man, how many of us have been talking about this? I harken back to the late 2000s, early 2010s, because that's where I grew up in gaming, and it wasn't this complete inundation of microtransactions. You had these smaller scale games coming out, and then mid-2010s, late 2010s, into the 2020s especially, completely cooked. Get them out of here. Get out the multiplayer games you used to play, like a Killzone or Resistance. We can't monetize those. Bring in Concord. Bring in Halo Infinite that we can monetize. And some of those games are good, but we've lost a lot of what I loved about gaming, and it's just not in the sense of single-player games, but multiplayer games as well. Let's continue. We have to remember there was a time when AAA companies were making games like Vanquish and Mirror's Edge and Kane and Lynch and all of these really cool, interesting, not small games, but much smaller scale games. And you've seen the number of releases from AAA publishers dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. Now there's an opportunity for teams like Sandfall to come in and give players something that they really have not been given for quite a long time, which leads us to ask, if Expedition 33 can be classed as a AAA game, how much did it cost exactly? As far as that, Honoron did note, everybody's desperate to know what the budget is, and I won't tell them, but I would guarantee, if you got 10 people to guess, I think all 10 wouldn't guess the actual figure. I'm sure Mirror's Edge and Vanquish cost more, put it that way, and yeah, I think Expedition 33 did orders of magnitude better than Mirror's Edge and Vanquish, at least initially, in terms of the first month sales. I'm sure Mirror's Edge has sold quite a lot. Vanquish as well has probably sold a decent bit, but those Mirror's Edge came out in 2008, Vanquish came out in 2010. When we get to, what would it be, 17 years since Mirror's Edge, so 2042 by the time Expedition 33 is on the market, the same amount of time as Mirror's Edge is on the market right now. I think Expedition 33 will have lapped Mirror's Edge quite a lot. I don't know exactly the total sales numbers of Mirror's Edge, but you get the idea. As far as the sequel, they are going to retain the level of the team in terms of they're not going to expand to a great degree. For now, our vision would be to stick to a close team working in the same city with less than 50 people on board, focusing on one project after another and keeping this agility and this creative strength and smartness of a small group of passionate people wanting to do something big. That's how video games were made for years. The team that made Ocarina of Time or Half-Life 2, I think those were max 60 or 70 people, and that kind of size allows for good decisions and great creativity. I will say, small team, if this means they can get out a game, let's say 3 years from now, totally on board with that. I am wondering, you know, even with a small team, are they gonna dedicate some people to do DLC, other people to do a full-fledged new title if they are gonna do DLC? There's a lot of moving factors, and they said they want to focus on one project at a time. Well, is DLC one entirely new project? I totally get focusing on one major project, but DLC, you would think, would be handled by a smaller team. You have that foundation in place already. We'll see how all of that turns out. He did note that the studio might recruit a few more members, but it won't be working on multiple projects simultaneously. I think there's been a lot of irresponsible practices in the industry, referring to the inherent risks involved in ballooning AAA budgets and team sizes. Some games can make it work. Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to make it work. I think we can all say that with great confidence, but there are plenty of games made with very large teams and for huge amounts of money that don't land, and there is a human cost to running things that way. People lose their jobs. God knows how many layoffs there's been in the industry over the last few years. Man, that's something I've been saying so much. There are games that can get away with the expanded cost, with the expanded price points. That's not every game, and people are gonna be selective when there are $70, $80, or even more higher price tags attached to it, and then ultimately there are consequences. Look at a game like Callisto Protocol. Look at the Immortals of Aveums of the world, and I think there are upcoming games coming out that have insane budgets that they are a little bit out of touch with what their consumer wants, and ultimately, we'll see how it turns out. I've talked about this in previous videos. There's a couple games that stand out to me that I'm looking at them and I'm like, oh, these games are probably pretty expensive. They're gonna be $70 or maybe even more than that, and I don't know how many people are gonna be all over a game like that. He did note that the temptation to scale up is too great. I do see a lot of developers who ship a game and then get some level of success, even very small levels of success or on very small budgets, and then almost instinctively feel like they need to double or triple the budget of their next game, and that is something I definitely question. What's a big game coming out that they just talked about the budget was doubled and they might be going to an $80 price tag? Oh, right, Borderlands 4. Now, Borderlands 4 is a megaton of an IP. I do think it'll do fairly well at an $80 price point, but is it going to justify the doubling of the budget? I don't know about that one. And I feel like Borderlands personally peaked with Borderlands 2, and I didn't feel great about Borderlands 3 or Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Again, Borderlands 4 will do great. Those budgets are exploding, so as far as Expedition 33 goes, it looks like whatever their next title is, it is going to be something that is still fairly small in scale, but I think that works. That works for not only Sandfall, but I think that's something a lot of publishers can take into note of in terms of people not wanting the most ridiculous amount of content. I think all of these aspects are assessed. Visuals, level of content, it's all assessed, but the fact is this game was $50 and there's other $50 games coming out. I'll throw it out there, while I don't think it'll be Expedition 33 big, I think if Wushang Fallen Feathers is a good game, I think that game's gonna do really, really well, and it's $50 as well. Mafia the Old Country, proportionally, it's going to have less content than a lot of $70 games, but I think people are gonna look at Mafia the Old Country if it is a 15-hour experience that is worthwhile. I think people are gonna gravitate towards that just because that $50 price point is so attractive. And, you know, Mafia the Old Country is being published by 2K. They're also publishing Borderlands 4, and Borderlands 4 I'm sure will be the bigger game, but I think Mafia the Old Country will do fairly well at the $50 price point, unless it's like a 6-hour long game. I think, like, Obviously, there are extremes that I think people are always going to push back on. A 6-hour game, even at $50. I mean, and you saw that with Callisto Protocol, and with some of these games, they sell millions of copies, and even that's not enough because the budget is so high. I think the scalability of these games and keeping it a little bit dialed back. Not every game is going to be an Expedition 33 level of success. I think that's also something. Like, Expedition 33 is a legit Game of the Year contender. You can't expect every game to come out and be a legit Game of the Year contender, but I think there's a market for games like this, and not just turn-based RPGs, just markets for smaller scale games, but games that have a lot of passion, are priced accordingly, and I think Expedition 33 got a lot of that right. There's a lot more information out of that interview. I'll leave a link in the description box below. There's more info that I want to get into, but already running kind of long on this video. So we'll end it here. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. This is going to be one of those games that I think people are going to be studying for a long time, and I think it's so interesting in regards to one of the points that he made, and I think it's so relevant to us criticizing games. It's when you chase those trends, when you chase where you think the world is and what will resonate right now and what's going to draw a lot of money. By the time you actually get to market, the markets have evolved. It's different. It's not there anymore. And I think there are some games that are revealed right now that, you know, maybe when they got greenlit in 2020, 2021, the world was in a different place. But then when you get to the market, oh, suddenly the world's a different place and those games aren't getting a lot of traction. But let me know what you guys think. A lot of great info. Shout out to Games Industry. Link in the description box below on that, and a lot of insightful info there. That'll do it for me. Thank you for watching. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.